Bad news for James Blake and the boys running Miami Masters 1000 as Rafa Nadal is out. Of course, Roger Federer is already out. I know they think Novak Djokovic is going to be there, but take a look at this. This is before the release of the schedule saying Djokovic, only days after this. But this story back on March 2nd, Tennis 365, Novak Djokovic unlikely to return to action before clay season, as there is, quote, that's a quote from his coach, Goran Ivanisevic, there is, quote, no need to take any risks with Novak Djokovic's body because he was injured at the Australian Open. Remember that. You might have forgotten after he won it, after he crushed everyone. Dominic Thiem also not going to Miami. What a tournament this is going to be because he lost to Lloyd Harris, who, I've been trying to figure out what is it that he does when he goes into his service motion. He kind of gazes forwards into the court. And then, almost as an afterthought, in the last moment, he shoots his head up and sees the ball and then hits the serve. And let's just call it what it is. It's a fart face. This is a face of thinking of relief, thinking of flatulation, something like that. I mean, just take a look at the motion a little bit. But he's a great guy. He's playing very well. Seems like a super nice guy. So we don't want to get on to him about the fart face too much. But Dominic Thiem lost to him and said, I'm done. I'm not going to Miami. I'm done with hard courts. I'm getting ready for clay, just like Rafa Nadal. Miami's freaking out, so they had to get Andy Murray. At least there's one guy from the GOAT race. A long time ago, he was in the GOAT race, right? One of the big four. At least they'll have him there in Miami. They've really incentivized players not to go to Miami because they've cut the prize money by 60%. We'll talk about that in the show. Also today, all this GOAT talk, maybe it doesn't matter because Jannik Sinner is here quietly becoming the GOAT. He's still a teenager, and if you zoom in closely at his face, he has a little bit of goat hairs on his chinny chin. And then finally, in today's show, we will talk about Roger Federer's loss to Basilashvili. A lot of people are like, you know what? I thought Federer was going to play 2 tournaments. We were supposed to get 2, but we only got 1. And a lot of people are confused about that, maybe a little upset about that. But hey, at least the guy he lost to won it all, Basilashvili, although he has trouble smiling, as you can see in this great meme from ATPWTA Memes Instagram account. And finally, I want to address a lot of talk on the tour about the mental wear and tear on the players right now because they're constantly traveling. The guys who are playing a lot, not the guys who are at home waiting for a different tournament to come up before they get out there. The guys who are grinding it out on the tour as it is right now with all the COVID-19 stuff still in effect. Think about how frequently these guys are traveling, going straight into a hotel room and being on the quarantine. And in an average week, how many times are they taking the nasal swab in the nose, right? Taking the big Q-tip in the nose for the COVID-19 test all the time. That sounds like a little thing. The guys are lucky to have their jobs and still be playing tennis on tour, sure. But it is something, it is a factor, and it is best illustrated right here in this clip from Marseille where Tsitsipas goes on to lose to Pierre-Hugues Herbert in this strange setup where they have cardboard fake people. It's kind of terrifying. And Hugues Herbert thinks he heard a person moving inside the fake person, maybe a ghost, maybe a psycho killer, and he panics for a moment here. Take a look.
Wait, please. There. I don't know, but...
All that on today's edition of Coffee Break Tennis. Welcome to the Coffee Break Tennis podcast. I wanted to do it podcast style today, if you don't know, because it's faster. It adds 2-3 hours of time when I have to use video. When I use video, because the process of making the file takes a very long time. So I wanted to get this up quick before we have anybody playing in Mexico. It's really cool for a tennis fan right now because you get to wake up and see tennis immediately in Dubai, and you get to fall asleep still watching whatever match they have up. Last night I fell asleep after Tsitsipas crushed John Isner. So let's go straight there and take a look at this draw, and then we'll get into all that stuff. Also, did I forget to mention in the intro where I tell you all the things we're going to talk about today? I did say in the last show that I wanted to show you a funny clip of Aslan Karatsev getting an interview in Doha, in Qatar. And I also wanted to share with you what the Pierre Paganini, the special super trainer to Stan Wawrinka as well, but mainly Federer. He keeps Federer's body going. He's kind of behind the scenes, but he's very important. He's almost as important as Federer's Wilson Pro Staff 97-inch edition, right? He's an important part of what makes Roger Federer go. So I wanted to talk about some stuff he said about a month ago about how this is not going to be just like, right, Federer might come back and win. He could win Wimbledon. A lot of people acknowledge that as being possible. Heck, the way he looked in Doha after he beat his friend, Dirty Dan Evans, I was even saying, wow, well, if he plays like that, and you know how players get better as they win more and keep playing in tournaments, and he has Basilashvili next, who hasn't won in a long time, who apparently went undefeated and won the entire tournament after that. You would think, I thought that Federer looked good enough to where, hey, if he keeps improving, getting his confidence back, he could win this tournament. He could go to Dubai and win that too. But if I would have listened more carefully, I might not have thought that. If I would have listened more carefully to Pierre Paganini, who said this will not be like 2017, and mainly that's because Federer lost all of the muscle. All of the muscle, right? He did, the break wasn't as long from 2016 Wimbledon to 2017 Australian Open, right? You're almost halfway done with the tennis season, more than half, really, with the Grand Slams at Wimbledon by the time you get to next year's Australian Open. So this was over a year, as you'll remember, for Federer. And they said because of that, he basically lost all of the muscle in the leg that he had his knee surgery on. So we'll take a look more closely at what he said, but that's later. We're at the draw in Mexico right now. Like I said, Tsitsipas, he beat Benoit Paire first before beating Isner last night. The scorelines are very similar. Pretty amazing. Tsitsipas had his first match point at 51 minutes into the match against John Isner. That's very impressive. I remember the first time I ever saw Federer play in person in Miami, 2014, I think it was. I'd been going for 7 years straight, every year to Miami, hoping to see Federer, and I always showed up right after he lost. I was always there with tickets to the round after he lost, it seemed like. But I saw him play Gasquet finally in 2014, I think it was, in Miami, and he beat Gasquet in I think it was 51 minutes or 47 minutes or something like that. It was one of the most amazing things I'd ever seen. It was a great way to see Federer for the first time in full flight. Well, Tsitsipas was in full flight, and Gasquet is one thing, but to do it to a guy like Isner, I know Isner wasn't playing his best, but still, with a serve like Isner's, pretty incredible stuff. So Tsitsipas flying high despite having some losses recently, but he's mostly been doing a lot of winning and doing the grind, which could be mentally tough. Doesn't seem to be so mentally tough for Tsitsipas. He's loving what he's doing, and he's winning a lot. He'll get Felix Auger tonight. You know about the history with him, I'm sure. Tsitsipas at one point, I think it was after losing to him at Indian Wells in 2018, I want to say. Maybe even 2019, was it? Whenever. Maybe it was 2019. It was probably 2019. Yeah, because I think he'd already had his big breakthrough at the Australian Open, beating Federer. Anyway, so he loses to Felix Auger, and he says, I can't beat the guy. I don't know. And I think in juniors, he had a 0-5 head-to-head against Felix. So it took him a long time to beat him. Eventually, he did beat him somewhere else on tour. I can't remember where. And Felix, he looked good against Korda. He looked not so good. He looked good against Tennis Sandgren until he almost completely blew it. Amazing, the mental struggle he went through trying to close that match out. How many double faults Felix hit trying to finish the Sandman, Tennis Sandgren. But he did eventually find a way to win the match. It looked like he was going to lose that second set to me, and somehow he found a way to win it in straight sets, no less. So that's a good sign, I guess. And, of course, he followed it up with a good win over Korda. I still like Tsitsipas to win that match, but you never know. Felix will feel good knowing that he's troubled Steph in the past, and you're aware. You're aware that Steph has a mental thing with you. Maybe he's over it. Maybe he's not. How about Lorenzo Musetti? Where was this guy winning a bunch last year that got everyone all excited? I can't remember. Anyways, we all know that Musetti is good. He beat Diego Schwartzman, who, if you'll remember, Karatsev, really, Aslan Karatsev, the secret weapon of Russia. He made his big announcement at the Australian Open, right, when he beat Schwartzman. I think it was round of 16 when he beat him, and the way he beat Diego Schwartzman. So Schwartzman's got to not enjoy getting beat up on by these, guys coming out of nowhere to announce themselves. So Musetti announces himself with a good win over Schwartzman, an amazing win. And then a win over Tiafoe that kind of similar in some ways, up and down roller coaster type match. But in the end, he does it. The guy has literally said that if he wasn't playing tennis, he would be a model.
Hansel, so hot right now.
So he has a lot of confidence in himself. So that's a good thing in this sport. Dimitrov will be playing Musetti. Couple nice one-handers. Couple things about Musetti. Yannick Sinner, the chosen one, the golden child. I know he lost today, but I'm amazed by him and his win over Roberto Bautista Agut, who's been very good lately and threw everything at Sinner. And we'll look at that in the Dubai draw and talk about it then. But Sinner said that Musetti is, because they're both Italians. He said this guy is a huge talent and he can do everything with the ball, and he can. That was one of the things that was amazing, was most impressive to me, right? He hits a lot of great shots, all kinds of great stuff. But the thing to me that's like most shocking to see this young guy, I think he's also 19, like Sinner, are some of these shots, the backhand slices he hits when he's kind of way behind the baseline, really should be, the point's over for him. And whoever he's playing, whether it be Schwartzman or Tiafoe, I saw him do it to both guys. They're coming to net or they're coming in for the short ball. And Musetti is able to hit a slice backhand. It's kind of reminds you of Roger Federer, the way he's able to take this slice and send it very low to the ankles of the guy coming into the net. So you're in a position that's almost indefensible, and then you come up with a slice backhand that is almost unusable for the aggressor. So that's something to look out for. Musetti's got incredible hands, so does Sinner as well. Incredible hand speed as well is another thing you'll hear. So, I like his chances against Grigor Dimitrov. Who wouldn't? So get an eye out on that. Bottom half of the Mexico Acapulco draw. Cam Norrie came through Fabio Fognini, and he will play Dominik Koepfer, who you would have thought Milos Raonic would have done well here, but Koepfer took him out. I did not see that match. I've been watching a ton of tennis, but I didn't see that one. However, I did see this. Hands off the Milos. Remember, keep your hands to yourself when you're around the Milos. He's a superstar, if you didn't know. Kasper Rudboy took on Talent Kriegspor, and he will play Alexander Zverev. Zverev, I've watched his win over Carlos Alcaraz. We got a lot of young talent to look at right now when all the big names are gone or losing early in Dominic Thiem's case. We've had some young talent to take a good look at. Alcaraz, again, incredible hands. This guy, some of the drop shots he hit, some of the volleys he hit, the way he's able to just kill the ball. Very impressive, the hand speed, what I was just saying about Sinner. Alcaraz has both of those things. The way he's able to hit a forehand reminds you of Federer. We've talked about this last year when Alcaraz first popped up on the scene. He's like 17. So a lot of talent there. You never know. It's like what Uncle Tony told Rafa after he won some small tournament, but it was a big deal for a young up-and-coming player. Can't remember what the tournament was. Doesn't matter to the story. He showed him an old newspaper clipping, I believe it was. Uncle Tony showed Rafa, and he said, hey, look at this guy who won this thing years ago. You ever heard of him before? That's right, you haven't, because he went nowhere. You have much work to do, young Rafa. And young Rafa heeded that advice. So that's always a factor with these guys, especially someone as young as Alcaraz. Is he going to keep this focus and intensity and the love of the game going? I love that. That's a thing that you hear a lot from these guys lately. Rafa said it when he won the French last year, and Djokovic recently said it. The love affair continues after he won the Australian Open, and you got to think of all the bad times you go through. You really do have to love this sport to pursue it the way the Big Four. Throw Andy Murray in there too. Look at him. That guy obviously loves the game with everything he's gone through with his hip, and he's still out there, and he's losing the players that he wouldn't have lost to before all the injuries, and he's unfazed because he still believes, and more importantly maybe, he still loves the game enough to keep doing it. So Alexander Zverev, I was impressed with in his wins in both of his last matches, because you've seen the moments where the frustration comes in the past. Maybe he'd hit a bunch of double faults or something, and he seems to be more calm. Maybe it's because he's the most experienced guy in this draw. I mean, Tsitsipas is pretty close there, but maybe he's feeling that role. So I like Zverev to come through. Tsitsipas, I could see him going down to Felix if Felix plays great and doesn't choke in the end. I could easily see. I'd more likely say that you see Felix choke and Tsitsipas comes through there. Maybe Musetti will go to the final. I don't think so. I think Dimitrov could get him, and if he doesn't, Tsitsipas will take him down. If it's Felix, who knows? Then anything could happen. But I like Tsitsipas to come through to Sasha Zverev. Would love to see that match again. Let's look at Dubai now. Lloyd Harris, who I've enjoyed watching. I mean, look, when you serve that well and you're consistently rallying that well, playing defense, but also attacking a lot too. I mean, he's just playing very balanced game right now. Lloyd Harris is doing everything. And again, when you're hitting spots in the serve as accurately as he is, and he's hitting them pretty big too, but he's hitting spots as well as anyone in this draw. So I was actually kind of expecting him to beat Dominic Thiem. Does that sound crazy? So yeah. Even if he makes a flatulation face, I like the guy. I like watching him. He seems like a really nice guy. I think it's on right now. It's behind me right now. He took Nishikori. He almost gave him the bagel. Instead, he fed him the breadstick in the first set. And then it looked like Nishikori jumped on Harris when I started doing this show and maybe went up like 3-0 right away in the second set. That's a tough call. I like Lloyd Harris to win. I did, but Nishikori, talk about love of the game. This guy's been injured so much. He's made so much money already. He's such a big name in Japan. If he was Bernard Tomic, he would have already quit because he's made enough money to not play tennis anymore. This guy loves the game. Maybe more than Bernard Tomic loves the game. I keep looking behind me at the television. They're showing Lloyd Harris. He's making a face in the chair, wiping himself down with the towel very thoroughly. Wiping the leg, wiping the left thigh. He's already wiped the face. He's back at the forehead. Can you show the score? Can we see the score? It's an hour and 11 minutes into the match. The longest changeover ever. I'm going to look at it later. Let's go below that. I like Lloyd Harris to come through, even if Nishikori gave him a bagel in the second. I don't know what happened yet. Shapovalov is through after beating Jeremy Chardy. Chardy's been very good. It all started in Rotterdam. Rotterdam was so freaking slow that Chardy was able to have the time to use his weapons, to use that big forehand, and he could out-hit people. He gave Rublev a really tough time there, too. I think that was the only time Rublev dropped a set en route. By the way, Rublev could break a Federer record that Rafa and Novak are not going to break because they're not going to play ATP 500s as frequently as younger players would. Roger Federer won 28 matches in a row at the ATP 500 level, starting in 2014, I think, and finishing at Halle 2016, right before he lost to Milos Raonic and went on the hiatus for the knee in 2016. That was the record then, 28. I believe Rublev is now past, who was it who had it? Andy Murray, maybe? I think it was Andy Murray. He was at 21 or 20, and now Rublev, I think, is at 22 wins in a row. Yes, he lost to Roberto Bautista Agut, but that was at ATP 250. Now he is in a 500 in Dubai. Federer fans, we're hoping for Rublev to lose. Shapo came through. We're at a totally different section of draw. Why am I already talking about Rublev? Shapo will probably play Lloyd Harris. I'm looking behind me. Nishikori won the second set, 6-3, and he's serving to get to 2-all in the third. Am I really picking Lloyd Harris over Nishikori, who's hot on the comeback trail? It doesn't matter. All right, moving down to the top of the bottom half. So we're on the third quarter of this draw now. Aslan Karatsev, he came through Jannik Sinner, an impressive win. He had to play very well because Jannik Sinner was playing great. Jannik Sinner was worn out by Roberto Bautista Agut and also by Karatsev. The combination of having to recover from that, come back the very next day and go against a guy in Karatsev who's extremely physical, very physically strong guy, very mentally tough. Maybe, I guess he wasn't in the past, but he fixed it, and he's moved beyond that now because he keeps having great results after the Australian Open. You might have thought he's going to be Hyun Chung. Remember Chung? But he's not. Karatsev, so far, he is looking pretty good. So he took down Jannik Sinner. I'm still so impressed because Roberto Bautista Agut was playing great. And remember, Bautista Agut, at his best, he beats Djokovic on hard courts multiple times, on courts like this in Dubai. He loves these kind of courts. I remember one of the times I saw Federer, 2017 Miami. I think he beat Roberto Bautista Agut 7-6, 7-6. And it was one of the toughest straight sets wins I'd ever seen. Roberto Bautista Agut is the real deal. He was playing great, and Jannik Sinner, he wore him down. It's pretty amazing to see. And the power Sinner is able to hit in the depth. Take a look at this very tiny clip so we don't get in trouble. This is the best thing to illustrate. I was recently, before I play the clip, I was recently listening to a presentation by Craig O'Shaughnessy from a few years ago. And this guy, he really studies the numbers in tennis and all that. And Djokovic had him as part of the team for a couple years on the payroll there. And he was saying how what's the number one weapon in tennis? What's the most damaging thing? Is it spin? Is it power? Is it placement? Is it depth? And he said it's depth. Number one, the easiest way to hurt people is depth. And Jannik Sinner, take a look at this clip. This is a serve return, forehand return. Look at that depth. Now, Karatsev is, recovering from falling into the court after hitting his serve. That makes it a little trickier, but still, even if you're behind the baseline before this ball gets to you, you can't attack it. What you can hope for with a ball like that is what Djokovic does so well, what Sinner does pretty well too when he's on the defensive. Can you just get it back deep enough to survive? And since you're Novak Djokovic, let's say for the example, you just got to get it, a little past the service line with a little bit on it. You get the great wheels. You're moving great. You get the defensive skills of Djokovic, so you're going to be able to get in it eventually. But for most players on tour, that ball from Jannik Sinner, and he hits it so regularly. He regularly comes up with a very deep ball. That's one of the most impressive things about Jannik Sinner's baseline game. He is a master of the baseline, and he's getting better fast. So you gotta think, if you're Djokovic even, but especially if you're Rafa, the way Jannik did challenge Rafa at the French Open last year, he's one of the only player really who it felt like could pull it off in the match in the moment. If you're Federer, this is getting a lot tougher. That's the reason why the comeback for Federer is not the same as 2017 at all, because all the young guns, they're definitely better. There's no hiding it. I don't know if they can beat Djokovic in a final on a hard court major or anywhere, especially Wimbledon, right? But they're definitely getting better. At some point, they're going to surprise us. All right, let's go. Anything else worth looking in there? Jannik Sinner, the win over Bautista Agut, 7-5. There was a face. Watch it. They don't show it immediately. They show it on replay. 5-all. Sinner holds serve. They sit down. They show a replay of a point. I think it was the game point Sinner won, where Roberto Bautista Agut comes to the net, has a forehand volley, and he puts it in the net. And then they show a look Roberto gives to his coaches, or whoever was in the box for him. And it's a look of like, I give up, kind of. It's a look of frustration. I wish I had the picture, the clip for you, but just take my word for it. He looked at him and said, hey, I threw everything I had to break this guy and serve for this match, and now I have to serve to stay in the match. And I don't know. I don't know if I can keep bringing it this hard against this guy at the level I need to stop him. It was a stunning thing to see. Karatsev should send a thank you to Roberto Bautista Agut. All right, let's go to the bottom. Rublev plays Fucsovics. That's later. We're at 2-all. Lloyd Harris serving 40-30. That's a tough one to pick now at this point, but because of the serve of Lloyd Harris and how good he's been lately, I'll say he takes this third set. So we could have, I'm expecting Rublev Karatsev, which is going to be exciting to see one of the Russians who joked about the secret weapon back at ATP Cup, now having to face him. And with something on the line, Rublev's got to play to keep that streak and see if he can beat one of Roger Federer's records. He might not beat 20 majors, but he could beat 28 consecutive wins at ATP 500 tournaments. And then we're going to have Shapo and what I think Lloyd Harris. Oh, God, I would love to see Lloyd Harris beat Shapo. but Shapo's playing better. He could come through. If anyone's going to stop Rublev here, though, it could be Fucsovics. That's going to be tough. Let's not just give it to him right away. Fucsovic's been good, but he's been a little mentally worn down. He's one of those guys where you're hearing about how the mental effect of the grind of this tour as it is now. You leave the airport, you're getting the nasal swab, then you're going straight in the hotel room. He might be a little too worn down to take out Rublev here. But the conditions should be better for him, I would think. At Rotterdam, it was too tough to hit through Rublev, and Rublev was able to do it with the big forehand. Here, it'll be easier. So that's an interesting match. Karatsev, though, I like his chances to beat Rublev. Karatsev, so impressive. So impressive. Do we have any more? Okay, so that's that. Speaking of Karatsev, let me show you this clip that I talked about. Talk about leading questions. And when I was in college studying journalism and media studies, they warned you about don't ask a leading question. You'll hear a question, then you'll hear a somewhat leading question, then you'll hear a full-on answer as a question, an answer posed as a question. Take a listen.
Andy Taylor on court.
Congratulations on your first main draw victory at the Qatar ExxonMobil Open. Mubarak, maybe a new face for those watching at home, but he's somebody you're familiar with. You've spent a lot of time here in Doha and developed some great relationships over the years. How instrumental has Qatar been to your evolution as a player?
Thank you very much for your congratulations. I play here like at home. I play many times futures here. I did the preparation for the preseason. I did like already 4 times, I think. So I feel the course is pretty comfortable for me, and I feel like the weather condition is fantastic for me.
And here's the leading question.
Yeah, and you've certainly developed some great relationships here over the years that you're carrying forward with you. You know, talk about the success that you've had here in Doha.
He's instructed him to talk about it. Uncomfortable laughter.
I mean,
Well, in futures, you know, you've played some tremendous matches here, and that's helped develop through the years.
I feel good here. I mean,
Yeah.
how can I describe it? I mean, yeah.
Exactly. What more can I say, buddy? Did you see him like moving his shoulders? He's like, you played the futures here. It was helpful to your career. You crafted your skills. You honed your skills in here. Let me just push this answer into your mouth so you can say it. Anyways, I thought that was hilarious. All right, Rafa and Dominic Thiem are already thinking about the clay, says David Goffins, tennisworldusa.org. I thought it was interesting how right here they say Dominic Thiem has won only 5 out of 9 matches this season. He won the U.S. Open last year, and everyone thought maybe he'll be able to take over the tour. Even I thought about the possibilities. But there is one thing I remember, and that was if he doesn't win something, I was saying this back then, it'll feel like an asterisk win at the U.S. Open. Andy Murray's already kind of confirmed it for us, saying that if Djokovic didn't put the ball through the lady's throat, there's no way Dominic Thiem wins the U.S. Open, and no one has a major still besides the Big Four and Stan Wawrinka and Marin Cilic. And Juan Martín del Potro. I hope Juan Martín comes back. I feel bad for the guy. Anyway, so Dominic Thiem, if he starts struggling now, maybe he starts thinking about how the U.S. Open, he wouldn't have got it. I don't know. Maybe he won't think about that. I don't want to say that, you know. Dominic Thiem, he's a champion. Great player. He's worked very hard. So I don't want to suggest that if it's untrue, but you always got to wonder about these mental effects. Tennis is mental. I saw a quote from Djokovic recently that said, "Tennis is mental. At this level, everyone has great forehands and backhands." And that's very true. Anyway, so he's only won 5 out of 9 matches, suffering early losses in Melbourne, Doha, Dubai, and still waiting for his first semifinal of the season. This is the quote from David Goffin. Rafa and Dominic are already thinking about clay, which is their most significant goal of the year. I understand this decision, the 19-hour flight for just one tournament. It's complicated, but I'll play in Miami. It's still a Masters 1000, and you have to be there. I know now why I didn't come to Dubai in the past, because it's very tough. The conditions are so fast. It's not easy for my game. That was the other thing he said there. So they're, saying it's all about the clay, which is true, but I think with Rafa, it's a little bit about the injuries. I have something in the stack here about that as well. We'll get to that in a second. Just want to say Danny Medvedev, he's not playing right now, but he did just get a win at Marseille. Looked good doing it, and I think he likes the court there, and he'll be going to clay where he won't be winning as much. Maybe he will. Maybe he'll surprise us. I'm very interested to see how he does on grass, because out of all the young people, the next gen, whatever you want to call them, you might say Medvedev should be the best on grass, so we'll see if that happens this year. But let's just read this from CBSSports.com. Danny Medvedev makes history, and he has, with career best number 2 spot in the ATP rankings. Medvedev is the first player not named Novak Djokovic, Rafa Nadal, Roger Federer, or Andy Murray to be ranked in the top 2 of the ATP rankings in 15 15 years. It has taken over 15 years, but now Medvedev has made history by approaching the very top of the ATP rankings. The most recent man outside of those big four names to appear at number 1 or number 2 in the rankings was Leighton Hewitt. Remember him? He retired a while ago. In July 2005, he was ranked second behind Roger Federer. Nadal held the second spot for 368 weeks. Federer's held it for 203 weeks. Djokovic for 144. Murray for 41 weeks. We'll see how long Medvedev can hang on to it. I don't think he's going to take number 1 anytime soon. So hopefully he hangs on there for a while, unless Federer takes it away from him. I'd like that. Raw fans would like to see him. Let's talk about Andrei Rublev. Slams. This is from thewest.com.australia. Slams the ATP's revised rankings. And just a good point. I saw this picture from Mr. Slice. Take a look. This is what the rankings would be right now, the top 8. Rublev would be number 3, I think it says. So I love how Rublev answered these questions. He says, if we would have normal system, I would be like number 4 in world, I think, Rublev told reporters when asked about Zverev's comments, who also doesn't like how he's not ranked as high as he would be. And Rublev asked the reporter a question. Nice to turn it on them, especially when they ask leading questions. He said, what do you think is better for me, to be number 8 or be number 4? With system that we're having now, for me, it's much tougher to be number 4. So here is answer. Typical great Russian response. Mój tovarищ. So that's a factor. That's a thing. A lot of people out there angry. I had more stuff on this before in the last time we did a show. And I didn't want to get into it. It's a lot. But there's some angry players saying this is done to protect Federer and protect Rafa, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you can make that case. But really what it's about is they're trying to protect players who feel unsafe. That was originally what it is. Well, now it seems like you can travel on this tour safely. We've seen enough people do it with all the social distancing guidelines. It's kind of a CYA move from the ATP, from Big Tennis, just to handle COVID the right way, correctly, to not be criticized. And, you do want to keep players safe, but they are doing that already. As I said, this is just for the players that don't feel comfortable traveling in these perilous times. That's what it's about. And also, they're suffering with the prize money, and that's why Miami is such a wreck right now, because I think the winner went from getting $500,000 to about $90,000. You've now priced all of the top players out because they can't afford to bring even part of their teams, right? Just bring in like the physio and the coach. Rafa, I knew he wasn't going to Miami. I wish I'd mentioned this in the last show so you could say, wow, Matt got that right, because I'd been thinking this for a while. As soon as I saw what they did, John Isner was very upset. That was a story at the time, earlier in the month, when they announced that the winner's going to get like $90,000. So now Rafa, if he goes to Miami, and like GoFan was saying, it's a long flight to play one tournament and to quarantine and all the stuff you have to do when you travel international, which is definitely mentally more difficult than ever before. It's not an easy sport, tennis, to travel all over the world, constantly changing cities and adjusting to new time zones. But now you throw in all the COVID stuff, it's definitely a factor, and I have something in here about that a little bit. We'll get into a little bit at some point. So you go through all the travel and the quarantine and the nasal swabbing, and you go to Miami, and even if you win, if you're Rafa, you lose money. $90,000 will not cover his travel, his expenses, and the travel and expenses and the lodging of his coaches and everyone that he has to bring along. So it makes sense that he'd skip it. Plus, it's all about the clay for Rafa. But I'm not sure Djokovic, oh yeah, and I showed you that earlier. We have an article here. I'm not so sure Djokovic goes. Here is the quote from Goran Ivanisevic. So Ivanisevic was asked if it's realistic to say Djokovic will only play again by the time Clay comes around. He said, yes, it's realistic. It depends on the injury as well, but there's no need to rush it. The only tournament that he would play is maybe Miami. I think his next MRI is in 2 weeks, so we will see. There's no need to take any risk. I would rather see him 100% ready for Clay to go after another Roland Garros title, rather than playing at 95% in Miami. So at least he says, so we got a shot Djokovic would go. It'll help him pad his Master of Masters record, right? So maybe he's thinking about that. But he also says here in this article that Djokovic is going to play less tournaments in general moving forwards. That served the Williams sisters very well in racking up as many majors as they could. Obviously, it's been a big part of Roger and Rafa's success as Djokovic gets closer to that mid-30s, late 30s he's going to have to do it as well, so no surprise there. All right, so that's enough about Miami. They made it tough for these top players. You know, you're going to have to want to win Miami. They don't really need the points, especially with the points protection system that Rublev is upset about, Zverev is upset about. A lot of players are upset because you don't really have to play if you already had a ranking right now to keep it. And if you are playing a lot and winning a lot even, you don't go up as fast as you would because of all those protected points. So why go to Miami? The only reason why Djokovic does is because he wants to have more Masters to make sure no one ever breaks his record, something like that. Let's go straight to, I'm bouncing all over, but let's go to René Stauffer, is a Swiss journalist who's written some books about Federer, and he writes for Tagesanzeiger. It's a Swiss publication, and he spoke on February 24th with Pierre Paganini. And here are some of the quotes from Pierre Paganini that I think are important. Now, I'm going to read them pretty much all to you because if you're a big Federer fan, you got to hear all this. And like I said at the beginning of the show, you know, you wanted to see, I thought, hey, wow, Federer looks pretty good considering he's been gone for 400 days. He could win here. Basilashvili just turned it on at the perfect time after going a long drought. They had said at the time, like, Basilashvili has only won one of the last 21 sets he's played or something like that. I can't remember. So here's what they said. This knee has been causing Federer. So one, admission that the knee is not a new thing. This has been causing him problems for several years, but you could have them under control with adapted planning and specific exercises. He and the whole team have been working on this for a long time. The fact that a player who's played over 1,500 matches has several construction sites on his body, well, that's just a part of everyday life, right? We know he's Roger Federer and he's magic, but the human body is the human body, even if you have $1 billion almost to care for the body. Comparing 2017 to now, he says the big difference is when he paused to Australia after Wimbledon in 2016, his muscles were always there. Now we have a total interruption in which the muscles deteriorated considerably. There was a long time between the first operation and the moment in July when we said we could slowly start working progressively again. His muscles were no longer in the same condition at all. The imbalances were extreme, right? He operated on one leg, so maybe the other leg was stronger. It definitely was, and it was in extreme imbalance, according to Pierre Paganini. His muscles could no longer work immediately, and he needed longer recovery time. When I started working with him, we were at the bottom. That means you try to do everything that's possible. At the same time, you have to do it several times so that the body learns to endure repetitions at a certain level. Then you have to pause and see how the body reacts. Roger only plays when he knows that he can play well. Now we all have to see how the body reacts. It's important to protect him. You have to have done a lot by now if you want to get back on the pitch, back on the court. It's really not comparable to 2016. Roger is already celebrating a big win if he can just get back out there and play and say, hey guys, I played, I was fine, I'm looking forward to the next match. Or if he lost, I'm looking forward to the next tournament. He actually trains, and this will let you know like how he looked so good beating Dan Evans. He looked pretty good losing to Basilashvili. He had a match point. He looks good, but it's different. It looks the same, but it's different, and here's how. According to Pierre Paganini, he says he actually trains almost normally. If you were to watch him right now, you'd say, he's not hurt, everything's fine. But one must not forget, only when all the stages are over do you begin to work on reactivity and pre-exhaustion. This is very important in tennis. We haven't been working on that for very long. And that's where you see if the puzzle works in all variations. All variations, meaning like a fifth set at Wimbledon, where you have match points, and you get them this time against Djokovic in the final. We hope. Federer fans hope. Here we are now. We are so far that one says, wow, this is a real fitness and tennis training. You sweat. You don't have to think about your knee every 5 seconds. You prepare for everything, and then he can fire again. That is good because it took an incredible amount of patience to even get to this point. It's crazy when you think about all this. And then the guy who runs blogs from perfect-tennis.com, big Federer fan who writes this blog, he adds some of his own thoughts at the bottom, and I added them into this. I printed this off a while ago, so I don't even remember what it says, so I'll just read it to you. We'll discover it together. The most interesting thing for me was the process involved. Roger started from almost zero, and Paganini revealed he had to start doing exercises that a 70-year-old would find simple. Yeah, I've done some of those same exercises, I think, because my brother had surgery on both his knees. I think, what do you call it, the ACL surgery. Knock on wood that I never have to deal with something like that. But I remember the exercises that he did to get his knees back, and they're very, very simple. They're like something you'd have somebody in their 70s doing. So no surprise that Federer would have to do all that kind of stuff to slowly build it back. You got to be careful because you can re-injure, or you could just break the thing forever when you're 39 maybe. So you got to be very careful as you build these things up slowly. What else did he say here? He said, you need a roadmap to get back out there, and thanks to Major Paganini, Private Federer gets another shot on the battlefield. I like that he finished with. All right, so there you go. Be patient with Federer, Fed fans out there. Fed haters, know that the struggle is real, and maybe take comfort in that, knowing that maybe Federer won't win another major, because this is asking a lot. It's one thing to make a Wimbledon final at age 39, which has been done by muscles, Ken Rosewall. But to win it and to have gone through all of this, that's another thing. But if anyone's going to do it, you would guess it was Roger Federer. So fingers crossed, Fed fans. All right, some more behind the scenes. You might have said, hey, Matt, Miami's only got $90,000 for the winner, but everyone knows the secret in tennis is appearance fees. Well, with no crowds or socially distanced reduced crowds, not a lot of extra money for the tournament directors to give out appearance fees. Quote from Raul Zurutudza from the Mexico Open, Acapulco. He said, we can't afford Rafa Nadal this year. The relationship with Carlos Costa, it's super good. Things are very open, but the reality is there's no funds to pay. Our budget for this year is super mega limited. They said they had guaranteed from before COVID a contract they signed with Sasha Zverev. It was more expensive to cancel it than to pay him. They would have happily canceled it and given the money to Rafa, but they'd have to pay more. That's how these contracts work. Say, hey, if you want to cancel the contract, just pay us more than what you would have paid us if we had done it. So that guarantees there's no canceling. Other players, the 4 or 5 that we invited with appearance fees, their economic demands are substantially lower than what they normally would do. Yeah, everyone's having to cut their asking price down. Nadal reportedly charges between $500,000 and $1 million. TennisWorldUSA.org saying that there. For non-mandatory events such as ATP 500s and 250s. Yep, that sounds about right. That's what he's worth. He's worth more than that, obviously. They get it back. Acapulco event, which belongs to ATP 500 category, would have to part with a large amount of money getting it all. It's not feasible. This prompted a response, also in TennisWorldUSA.org, covered there, from Carlos Costa, who wrote me a very nice email one time telling me how Rafa was too busy to sit down and have a chat with me years ago at Cincinnati. Anyways, very nice email, though. Seems like a nice guy. Rafa's agent, Carlos Costa, confirmed in an official press release to Tennis World USA the reasons why the former world number one has decided not to play the upcoming tournament in Acapulco, Mexico. Recently, some incorrect information, Carlos Costa says, has been published on different media outlets about the non-participation of Rafa. I would like to clarify, through this press release, the real reasons behind his withdrawal. Rafa has decided not to take part to the tournament for reasons that are connected to his current health status, to the calendar, and to the situation connected to having to undertake such a long trip, taking into account the current circumstances we are facing. As is well known, Rafa recently came back from injury at the Australian Open with a problem on his shoulder, and he's still recovering from the injury. This is the reason why he decided to not take part in the upcoming tournament in Rotterdam, where he's previously enrolled. At the same time, given the cancellation of the Masters Tournament in Indian Wells and the delay of the start date for Mexico, Rafa decided not to travel to Acapulco this year. His program and his calendar for the upcoming week still remain, blah, 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 blah. Just want you to know it's not about the money. It's about the injuries. I think it's a little bit about both. I don't blame him. You don't have to explain anything, Carlos Costa. We get it. All right, this is from Joe Wilfried Tsonga, and this is the last thing I'm going to say, except Lorenzo Musetti said, I expect wins like this. All right, male model guy. We're glad you have the confidence. We hope you can keep winning. We shall see. The tour is tough. Hit the music. We're good down here. Tsonga says, tennis players are no longer motivated as before. The pandemic ruined Joe Wilfried Tsonga's plans in 2020, and he's kind of letting us all in on the secret that it's kind of tough to be on tour right now, and with less money for all of the harder work now with all the stuff they have to go through, it's hard to get as motivated. And some people might say, hey, screw you, man, you're a tennis player making a bunch of money. I think, though, that the struggle is real here. So let's take a look at what he said. He said, with the current health situation, the tennis I knew, right? Think of the great matches we've seen Tsonga play over the years with big crowds in big places for big prizes. The tennis I knew no longer exists. It's a different atmosphere. No crowds. You can't raise your arms to greet the crowd when you step on court. You get tested every 3 or 4 days. No restaurant to clear your mind after a tough match. It's complicated. There are also some tennis players who play at a loss, meaning like Rafa, if he goes to Miami, you lose money sometimes. I'm one of the oldest, and I know how many of us have enjoyed the world of tennis. Some experienced players tell you, I'll fly, I will lose money, I'll always get my points, but I will not have fun, I have no motivation. Many of them no longer know how to motivate themselves. This is the reality. That's the truth. You might be critical of these guys, but the job is tougher. Thanks for tuning in to Coffee Break Tennis. We'll be back next week to wrap up everything going on here and look ahead to the Miami Masters. See ya!